Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, they take great care of my home. We are also a part of the Believe YouTube Podcast Network, and we have got a lot to get into today on the show. First, though, I do want to say thank you to everybody yesterday. I decided, let's see, I think I went live at 3:25. I think I decided at like 2:50 that I was going to go live at 3:25. You know, just with a little combine wrap up, because I knew there was going to be news and gossip and nuggets and things like that to talk about as soon as, with Monday happening and everybody going to be putting stuff out there. And so I said, no, don't want to wait on it. Let's just go. And the amount of downloads that we had yesterday and YouTube views and everything else, it's like it was just a regular show. And this was with almost no notice. Again, I decided 30 minutes before I did it that I was going to do it. And so I thank everybody who is subscribed to the channel, who's got the notifications turned on, who's following on Twitter at Jared Stillman, following on Instagram at the Jared Stillman, following on TikTok at Stillman and Co. and everything else. I appreciate all of it and the support. Okay. When it comes to the Titans, we will start with what I think is inevitable. I believe the Tennessee Titans, tongue-tied there. I believe the Tennessee Titans are going to draft Jeremiyah Love. I don't think it's set in stone, but it's a feeling I have. My old show, we used to have the guarantees, and we would have the call in it, and I would call it today. I think the Titans are drafting Jeremiyah Love. And let's go through the who, what, when, where, and why for all of this. Number one, we know the who. It's Jeremiyah Love. We know the when. It's April 23rd. We know the where. Running back. Now the why. I don't really know how to say this, but the Titans are absolutely obsessed with what Twitter thinks. I don't get it. Most of the population does not live on Twitter. And yet, for some reason, the Titans very clearly make a lot of decisions based on how Twitter feels. I can't pinpoint one example of where I thought, oh my God, that's Amy's burner account, like she was Kevin Durant or anything like that. But I'm just telling you, I've seen them get bent out of shape about things on Twitter, and I've seen some really, really bad football decisions based upon what Twitter said. I think there are also non-football decisions that don't make a lot of sense to me, like unretiring Warren Moon's number, which I think was a thing that started on Twitter. I think the move back to the Oilers colors was a Twitter thing, because when they brought back the Oilers jerseys, Twitter loved them so much. So the Titans said, well, if Twitter likes it, let's just make it our permanent jersey. I even think firing John Robinson when they did was a Twitter thing, because most people, I think, that lived in reality knew that Robinson was a good general manager who had made some mistakes, but Twitter hated him, and they loved when they fired him at 7-5 in first place. To be honest, I think Matt Nagy got vetoed because of Twitter. I don't think TD made up that report that Borgonzi wanted Nagy and Amy convinced him, let's go with Saleh instead. I think Twitter, that hated Matt Nagy and loved anybody who wasn't Matt Nagy, loved Kevin Stefanski, loved John Harbaugh, loved Robert Saleh. I think they ultimately got the vote. And when it comes to the 4th overall pick, I think Twitter has spoken. And Twitter wants Jeremiyah Love. Forget that they need a bunch of positions, and forget that no running back has ever won with a team that has drafted him high over the last 10 years, with the exception, I guess, of Leonard Fournette, who got to an AFC title game as the running back in Jacksonville. Twitter has decided that the Titans must draft Jeremiyah Love with the 4th overall pick. And when Titans Twitter wants something, 90% of the time, they get their way. Now, I subscribe to the reality that the fans have no idea what they're talking about. And like the old man used to say, and many have said, if you start listening to the fans, pretty soon you're sitting with the fans. But I am willing to accept what I cannot change. The Titans fans have spoken, at least the ones on Twitter. And I believe that the Twitter fans do get a vote. And if you think ownership is not involved in the pick, you're crazy. Ownership wants updates about what they had their football people see at the combine just as much as we want updates about what the football people think about what went down at the combine. And so, with the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Tennessee Titans will be selecting Jeremiyah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. And Twitter will be elated. Now, let me say this. It does not matter how you arrive on the pick, though the process of letting Twitter decide who's going to be a Titan, where guys like Justin Graver, and I like Justin Graver, and Tic Tac Titan have a bunch of say. If that is the end result, that they pick Jeremiyah Love, I don't think that's a bad choice, because I do think Jeremiyah Love is a very, very good football player. And the second the Titans draft Jeremiyah Love, in my opinion, Jeremiyah Love becomes the best player on the Titans offense. Period. He's better than Skoronski. He's better than Ridley. He's certainly better at running back today than Cam is at quarterback. I mean, I think Jeremiyah Love right now is a top 10 running back in the NFL, and he absolutely is the best and most dynamic player on the Tennessee Titans offense if they draft him. So I want to say, I think Jeremiyah Love is going to be a Tennessee Titan. If the draft were to be held today, and at some point this week, we will have the Jared Stillman mock draft 1.0, I think it would go like this. The Raiders go Mendoza at 1. The Jets go Arvell Reese at 2. I don't know who the Cardinals are going to take, and I do think if somebody does take Jeremiyah Love, it would worry me that it could be the Cardinals, because the Cardinals have needs across the board. But I think they'll probably go David Bailey. And the Titans, on the clock, at number 4, go with Jeremiyah Love. And so, that's what I think will happen. That said, even though, again, I think it is ridiculous to let Twitter make your football decisions, I think the Titans do that. Again, I don't know why. I don't know if Amy is on Twitter with a burner account. I don't know if Kenneth is on Twitter. I don't know who over there is on Twitter. I don't keep up with it. I just see how they react to things that are said on Twitter, and I am convinced that they are an organization that is run by Twitter. It's very embarrassing. And I think it's probably a part of the reason why you suck so bad is because you guys are so focused in on what Twitter says. I mean, again, the Titans had no interest in Sam Darnold because Twitter said he sucked. The Titans are convinced that Cam Ward can be Patrick Mahomes, even though most evaluators in the league don't think he's that good. But Twitter thinks he can be, so the Titans think he can be. Again, when Twitter last year started talking about the idea of unretiring the great Warren Moon's number for an untested rookie quarterback who hadn't pissed a drop in the National Football League, my immediate reaction was, no, we're not doing that. That's disrespectful to Warren Moon. But this is Titanland. And in Titanland, if Twitter wants it, Twitter gets it. Amy Adams Strunk is the sugar mama, and Titans Twitter is the sugar baby. I don't understand it, but it is what it is. And that being said, it's not the end of the world if Titans Twitter gets their way and they end up picking Jeremiyah Love with the 4th pick. It would not be the end of the world. I mean, I have had some meltdowns on draft night in the past. We all remember the Peter Skoronski pick. We all remember the J.C. Latham pick. Even last year when Adam Schefter hopped on the television as soon as the Titans took Cam Ward and said the Giants were willing to offer the farm in order to go up and get Cam Ward, even then, I had a little bit of a meltdown. This year, if the Titans at 4 are sitting there with the pick, and it is Jeremiyah Love, a running back, Notre Dame, then I would say it's not the end of the world. I actually think that could be a very, very good pick. But I want the Titans to make a deal with me today because I think the Titans do listen to Twitter, and I absolutely know the Titans listen to every show that I do. And so I would like to make a deal. I will not bitch about you picking Jeremiyah Love, in large part because Twitter likes Jeremiyah Love. I will not complain about it on draft night. I will not have one of those meltdowns. I will not have one of those on his ass the way that I've been with Cam Ward last year, because I want to see the next Patrick Mahomes, not the lowest graded quarterback in the NFL. I want to see a franchise quarterback who's worthy of Warren Moon's number, not pretend in my head that he is one, even though Twitter's already done that. So here's the deal. You get Jeremiyah Love. Twitter's happy. I guess you're happy because when you're going on Twitter, you will see people say, hey, great pick, Titans, because Twitter's decided that's who they want. ESPN has decided Jeremiyah Love is the best player in the draft. Again, I don't have a problem with Jeremiyah Love. But if they were to do this, you have to go get Trey Hendrickson. That's the deal I want to make with the Titans today. If you are planning to draft Jeremiyah Love with the 4th overall pick, you have to go big in free agency on defense. I think the most important thing for this franchise is that Cam Ward proves to be a top half of the league starting quarterback by the end of year 3, so that the Titans are not in purgatory trying to make financial decisions about picking up a 5th-year option or about extending their quarterback. I don't think it's likely that Cam Ward will be those things, but that is the goal. And in order for Cam Ward to be successful, what has to happen is Cam Ward's team has to win games with Cam Ward at quarterback. And so, if Cam Ward's team has to win games, I think the easiest way to do that is to play great defense, keep the scores low, and run the football. And if you draft Jeremiyah Love, I feel like the running the football element of this is totally taken care of. I think that you can throw the ball to Jeremiyah Love. I think you can hand the ball to Jeremiyah Love. I think Jeremiyah Love will be awesome. I'm not getting into this like Titan fans are, where they're like Eddie George, Chris Johnson, Derrick Henry, Jeremiyah Love. I don't care about any of that. I just care about building the best team, and I want to run the football, and running the football, Jeremiyah Love can do. But you also have to play defense. You have to play defense. And so the two things that, again, I've said the number one thing is you got to agree. If you're going to go with Jeremiyah Love, you have to sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency. And the second thing is you can't bring Chig back at tight end. And you have to have a better blocking tight end than Chig Okonkwo if you are going to use the 4th overall draft pick on Jeremiyah Love. Because if you use that 4th overall draft pick on Jeremiyah Love, you need to run the ball 25 times a game. And if you're running the ball 25 to 30 times a game, Chig is going to be on the sideline because Chig can't block. So those are my two conditions. You guys on Twitter, you want Jeremiyah Love. And you know what? Jeremiyah Love is a damn good football player. And Jeremiyah Love murdered the combine. And Jeremiyah Love would be the best player on this offense. And Jeremiyah Love, I think, would be worth watching. And so I'm not poo-pooing Jeremiyah Love. But if I am going to draft Jeremiyah Love, then you have to sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency, and you can't bring Chig back because you have to have your tight end who makes money on your team blocking. I said yesterday, where I sit right now, assuming what many of you assume, which is that the Titans will not get Trey Hendrickson. And I do reluctantly agree with my buddy TDG, who said that their free agent edge rusher move is the trade for Jermaine Johnson. But when he said that, my assumption was, well, that's because they're going to pick David Bailey or they're going to pick Arvell Reese or maybe even pick Reuben Bain. But if you go running back at 4, you have to go get a number 1 edge in free agency. And I argue, go get the best one. And the best one is Trey Hendrickson. And I think about Hendrickson and Simmons together, and it reminds me of Albert Hainsworth and Kyle Vandenbosch. Big fella in the middle who can get after the quarterback, and that high motor guy on the end who you know is giving it 110%. And that makes the entire defense better, especially for a coach who wants to rush 4 and drop 7. So when it comes to the money for Hendrickson, it's going to be expensive, but that's free agency. And if you draft Jeremiyah Love, you can turn around 5 minutes later and save $7 million by cutting Tony Pollard after the draft, which isn't really fair to Tony Pollard, but that's why some players get it worked into their deals that their contracts become guaranteed on the 5th day of the league year so that money becomes guaranteed no matter what. You can draft whoever, but you got to pay me. And Tony Pollard does not have that kind of protection. So if I'm giving into Twitter, which when it comes to Titans Twitter, I think you people know I rarely do. I rarely go with the popular opinion because most of the time the popular opinion is stupid. And I think the popular opinion and the Titans' acquiescence to it is why the last 2 years they've been the worst team in ball. But if I am going to give it to Twitter on this occasion, and I say, okay, let's do it. Turn in the card, Jeremiyah Love. Then I want Trey Hendrickson at whatever it costs to play edge. And I don't want Chig back because I want to run the ball and I want a tight end who can catch, but can also block. Chig can catch, and Chig is very good running after the catch, but he can't block. So that's the first thing. I'll be okay with it when it comes to Jeremiyah Love, but you're not getting Chig back. That's how I see it. That's how I believe it should be. That's the first thing. Now, I do want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. You know I love Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. In fact, I actually talked to Hiller yesterday about something. And it's because I have such a good relationship with not just the people at Hiller that decide to partner with our show and have been with me for years and years and years ever since I bought my first home. But it's because I've actually gotten to know the people at Hiller that take great care of me. And I was texting yesterday with a project manager asking about ideas because the project manager knows my house, remembers my house. That's the kind of relationship that I have with Hiller. And I absolutely love Hiller. They've been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more by visiting happyhiller.com with professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value. Hiller believes that when they care about others, everybody wins. Hiller, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the happy face truck today. The Predators in action right now, by the way, against the Detroit Red Wings. Okay, here's the second thing when it comes to Jeremiyah Love. I think the Titans are in love with Jeremiyah Love. And I think many of you probably think that too. I mean, it feels to me pretty certain that the Titans like Jeremiyah Love. But what's not to like? Like, he's awesome. He's fast. He's strong. He's productive. He's healthy. He is versatile. He can be the bell cow power running back if you want him to be, and he can catch a ball out of the backfield and go crazy with it. Jeremiyah Love to me is like a bigger version of Marshall Faulk. I love Jeremiyah Love. But at the same time, I do wonder if somebody else loves Jeremiyah Love too. And this is what I think makes it really hard with free agency before the draft. I today think the Titans are going to draft Jeremiyah Love. But let me say this. I do not know what the Arizona Cardinals are going to do with the number 3 pick. The Arizona Cardinals, I think they had the 3rd pick a couple of years ago when they traded Will Anderson Jr. to the Texans and they ended up trading back up and drafting Paris Johnson, the Arizona Cardinals are an absolute wild card when it comes to the draft. And they could go with almost any position with the 3rd overall pick. I read a story in the Arizona, I think it's the Arizona Republic. It's the local paper there. I read a story about the Arizona Cardinals today. They have a need at quarterback. They have a need at running back. They have a need on the offensive line where I think they're going to be replacing 3 starters. They have a need on the defensive line. They have a need at inside backer. And I think they may have a need in the secondary. So outside of Paris Johnson at left tackle and Marvin Harrison at receiver and Trey McBride at tight end, they got a shitload of needs. And they've got the 3rd overall pick. So if you're the Titans and you're building your team out, it's easy for the Jets to say, well, we're going to draft Arvell Reese or we're going to draft David Bailey with the 2nd overall pick. So we traded away Jermaine Johnson. We don't have to replace him because, again, we're going to draft him. And we know we're going to draft him. The Raiders are going to get rid of Geno Smith somehow, but they're not going to go sign a quarterback. They won't have Kyler Murray or Tua or any of those guys because they're going to draft Fernando Mendoza. And because they have the number 1 pick, they know they're going to do it. If you're the Titans, how do you build your team thinking that you're going to get Jeremiyah Love when there is a chance that Jeremiyah Love might be gone before you get to pick at 4? Now, my suggestion has been the Titans need to fill every single need in free agency with starting caliber players. That's what all the money's for. And then when they sit there on draft day at 4, they can go get the best player on the board. And then if they get the best player on the board, then they can make roster adjustments afterward. I don't think there's going to be a receiver that they should pick with the 4th overall pick after Carnell Tate bombed in the 40 time at the combine. But let's say they go receiver. Well, then you can cut Calvin Ridley the next day and you save all the money. Let's say that you draft Jeremiyah Love. Then you can cut Tony Pollard the next day and you can save the money. Let's say that you think you're going to draft Jeremiyah Love. You don't draft Jeremiyah Love. Sonny Styles is the best player on your board. You draft him at 4. You cut Cody Barton the next day. That's what I would do. So I think the way I look at it is, okay, if we're committed to Jeremiyah Love and then Jeremiyah Love goes, that should not kill them as far as roster construction is concerned. And even if they sign Trey Hendrickson and they traded for Jermaine Johnson, they still can take an Arvell Reese or a David Bailey because the style that Robert Saleh reportedly wants to play is that old Greg Williams, Jim Schwartz, Jim Washburn style, which is you play 2 or 3 plays, you let it rip at 100%, and then you come out of the game. And they did that with Javon Curse, and they did that with Albert Hainsworth, and they did that with all those guys. There were guys like Henry Ford and Joe Salavea and just a bunch of defensive linemen that would run out there for the Titans because they were so deep because they would send guys out there for 1 or 2 plays at a time. And I'm cool with that. If you've got Hendrickson and John Franklin Myers and Jeffrey Simmons and Jermaine Johnson and Jalen Harrell and David Bailey and you're just go, I'm here for it. And so that's the way they need to build their team because even though I think they're going to draft Jeremiyah Love, even though I think you think they're going to draft Jeremiyah Love, it would not surprise me if today at what is it, Vanderbilt Health Football Center, if they were to think today, yeah, we're going to take Jeremiyah Love, there is a world in which Jeremiyah Love, who ESPN has declared the best player in this draft, goes off the board before the Titans pick at 4. So I do wonder how they're going to plan that in there because I know even though they're going to spend a bunch of money in free agency this offseason, they're still going to do this as cheaply as possible. Like that, again, it's like TDG said when they traded for Jermaine Johnson and he said, this is their move at pass rusher, Jared. And I'm like, oh no. TDG says, I remember when Jared said Chig sucked and he wasn't a tight end 1-2. I mean, I still think Chig kind of sucks. And I certainly do not think Chig is a good tight end one. I think Chig is a good backup. You have a guy like Hunter Henry as your starting tight end, and Chig is your second tight end. That, I think, is a good fit for Chig. So that's the second thing. Again, how do they prepare when it comes to the draft if somebody likes Jeremiyah Love? If somebody else wants him too? And again, with Arizona, I don't know what they're going to do. A lot of people are mocking Arizona at 3 as a team that will take Mauioga, the tackle out of Miami. But what I struggle with Arizona doing that is they already have a left tackle. And 3 is far too rich for a right tackle, though you could convince me in a terrible draft, which it seems like this might be. In a terrible draft, you could argue that. But I don't see them going tackle at 3. I don't know if anybody will want to trade up to 3. I'm not sure I see it. So with them, they're a wild card, and they could take Jeremiyah Love. They could convince themselves that, hey, we're going to stink right now because we committed to Kyler and Kyler sucks, and now we're getting out of the Kyler mess, and we've made a lot of bad veteran deals over the last couple of years. So we're just going to roll in there and say, all right, here we go. Jeremiyah Love, you're going to carry the ball 30 times a game. Jacoby Brissett's going to play quarterback. Or Malik Willis is going to play quarterback, and our plays are going to be throw it to McBride, throw it to Marvin, hand it to Jeremiyah Love. Although I will say this, I did see that Benjamin Solak said to Easton at the Combine, he's like, you need 3 pass catchers, 2 receivers, and somebody who's not a receiver. And even though Marvin Jr. is the only receiver they'd have, if you have Jeremiyah Love and Trey McBride, it's pretty 2 good pass catchers, even though they're not receivers. Okay, the third bit of news that I want to get into, I have no idea where this came from, but Jeremy Fowler over the weekend at ESPN put out that the Titans are in the mix for the Bears starting linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. Now, Edmunds is due $15 million this season. I believe this is the 4th year of a 4-year deal that pays him $15 million per. Edmunds was a big free agent signing when the Bears had a bunch of cap space a couple of years ago, and he's a fine inside backer. This goes back to the Sonny Styles discussion, which is when it comes to inside backer in the NFL, there's Fred Warner, there's Roquan Smith, there's a couple of dudes out there, and then there's just a bunch of good players that, again, are solid but don't transcend your team. Devin Lloyd does not transcend your team. Nakobe Dean does not transcend your team. And Tremaine Edmunds does not transcend your team. But when I saw that the Titans could be in the market for Tremaine Edmunds, who is a soon-to-be 28-year-old at inside backer, who makes $13.9 million in the last year of a 4-year deal, but has a $1 million roster bonus due on the 5th day of the league year, I thought he would be an upgrade from Cody Barton. But then I started to do the math in my head when it came to Tremaine Edmunds. And let's say that the Titans swap spots in the 6th in exchange for Tremaine Edmunds. Well, they'd have to move off of Cody Barton. But in moving off of Cody Barton, you would pay the $1.5 million that is owed to Cody Barton this year. So then you'd be paying truly $16.5 million for an average inside backer. Pass. No, thank you. And again, Tremaine Edmunds is a solid player. He's an average inside backer. And if I didn't have an inside backer, then I'd say, okay, maybe I'd consider it. If the cost was $6 million, maybe I'd consider it. But I don't think Tremaine Edmunds is better than Ernest Jones. And Ernest Jones makes $11 million a year. And so if I'm going to up the price at inside linebacker, it's got to be for a guy who's of Ernest Jones caliber and at Ernest Jones money. And I don't think this guy is either Ernest Jones caliber or Ernest Jones money. So when I see the Titans are in the mix for Tremaine Edmunds, I would say pass. But there are guys when it comes to the Bears that I do want. Cole Kmet, the tight end, is a more well-rounded tight end than Chig Okonkwo. And I pulled up their receiving stats since Chig was drafted in 2022. Now, it's not totally fair because Cole Kmet was entering his third year in the league when Chig got drafted in 22. But Kmet and Chig's receiving stats are almost identical, except for the fact that Kmet has double the amount of touchdowns, 19 over that time period, to Chig's 8. But Cole Kmet had a run blocking grade of 62.2 last year, which I think we can all agree is significantly better than Chig's 27.9. Chig apparently was 36.1 in 2024. And as much as people like to bitch about PFF, and I get it, you can bitch about PFF all you want. I think when Chig has a run blocking grade of 27.9, regardless of whether it's 27.9 or 31.6 or 36.1, or Chig sucks when it comes to blocking. He cannot block. Well, I'd rather have Cole Kmet. And then I looked at Cole Kmet's contract. Cole Kmet is signed for $10 million a year over the next 2 years. If you're going to sign Chig to a contract, which PK reported over the weekend, they are interested in signing Chig to a contract. Well, I think that contract, Chig is probably looking for somewhere around $12 million. I think the Titans are probably looking at somewhere around $7 million. And I think it's probably going to be a 3 or 4 year deal with at least 2 years guaranteed. Well, would you not take the better player at $10 million? For sure. Better blocker. So if you draft Jeremiyah Love, he can block. As good a receiver, more of a touchdown scorer than Chig, for maybe $1 million more than you would have to pay Chig in order to keep him. Like if you offered Chig 2 for $20 with no guaranteed money, I don't think he'd take it. That's what Cole Kmet is. So when it comes to the Bears and Jeremy Fowler's talking about Tremaine Edmonds, I'm thinking to myself, yes, Edmonds is a step up from Cody Barton. But then when I cut Cody Barton, I have to eat $1.5 million. Then I have to pay Edmonds $15 million. So now I'm paying Edmonds $16.5 million to be an average inside backer when I could instead pay Kmet 10. I'd rather do that. And then, of course, there's DJ Moore, who I want from the Chicago Bears, whom I have discussed extensively as somebody that I think would fit here and would knock down a need, and I still think has game left and would be a big addition for Cam Ward. Now imagine this. For all you people out there that say, Jared, we have got to help out Cam Ward. How much better would you be with Jeremiyah Love, DJ Moore, and Cole Kmet instead of Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, and then paying $8 to $9 million a year for Chig? I think you'd be much better. Don't need an inside backer for $16 million. I think that's crazy. And it should be noted, Ben Johnson in Chicago runs the Earhart-Perkins offense, which is the same offense that Brian Daboll runs. Let's get to some of your reaction here again on the first. I think it is for sure that they are going to be taking Jeremiyah Love with the 4th overall pick if Jeremiyah Love is there, which I expect Jeremiyah Love to probably be there, but it's certainly no guarantee. Brand says, why is he, talking about me, not talking about the Titans being the betting favorites for Max Crosby? So I saw this, and I do not believe the Titans are the betting favorite for Max Crosby. I believe the Titans are second. I think the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken, are the betting favorite for Max Crosby. And we'll get to the Patriots here in just a second. Here's the problem when it comes to Max Crosby. I just don't see a trade that makes a lot of sense for the Titans. Excuse me, the Commanders. This is according to betonline.ag. The Commanders are plus 300 for Max Crosby. The Titans are plus 400 for Max Crosby. The Patriots plus 500. The 49ers plus 600. Cowboys 700, whatever. Let me say this. I don't see a trade for Max Crosby and the money you have to pay for Max Crosby that make a lot of sense for me when it comes to Max Crosby. So it's like if you were to say, well, I want a first-round pick for Max Crosby. Well, my first-round pick and New England's first-round pick are not the same. My first-round pick is number 4. Their first-round pick is number 31. There is a big difference between those two. Derek Jeter, who is a moron when he was running the Marlins, demanded that if you wanted Christian Yelich from the Marlins, you had to trade your number 1 prospect. So when the Atlanta Braves called, Derek Jeter demanded Ronald Acuna Jr. in return. Ronald Acuna Jr. was the best player in the minor leagues. He was considered a cannot-miss prospect and had Hall of Fame potential. The Milwaukee Brewers called, and their number 1 prospect was Lewis Brinson. And that ended up being who the package, or the trade package, was centered around. Lewis Brinson. Well, Lewis Brinson would have ranked like 7th in the Braves farm system at that time. So when you say, like, I want a first-round pick, the New England first-round pick and the Tennessee first-round pick they're nowhere near the same. New England will be drafting, if they draft with that pick at 31, they will be drafting a second-round graded player. You will be drafting a blue-chip caliber player. Even if it is Jeremiyah Love, who's a running back, not a premium position, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, even if it's one of those guys, it's still a blue-chip player. It's not the same thing. So what is the fair trade between the Titans and the Raiders for Max Crosby? Knowing that the Raiders are going to want a first in return, knowing that you're not going to deal the 4th overall pick, knowing that they're going to want something in this year's draft. And so the best I can come up with is the Raiders probably want your second-round pick this year and your first-round pick next year. Pass. Why would I do that when I could sign Trey Hendrickson? And I would agree, Crosby is a step above Trey Hendrickson. But you'll have to pay Crosby more, and you'll have to give up, again, this year's second, next year's first, in order to get in order to get Max Crosby, and you don't have to give up any picks in order to get Trey Hendrickson. So, I mean, you can put the Titans number 2 on the list. I would be stunned if the Titans trade for Max Crosby. And I'm a Max Crosby fan. I mean, he absolutely is a number 1 pass rusher, but so is Trey Hendrickson. And I can get Trey Hendrickson for a little bit less money and 0% of the compensation. So wouldn't I do that? I don't understand why I would give up picks for Crosby when I can just sign Hendrickson, even though apparently everybody tells me I'm not allowed to have Trey Hendrickson. Okay, more of your reaction on that front. TDG says, Love is all you need, baby. Again, TDG wants Jeremiyah Love, and Titans Twitter wants Jeremiyah Love. And if Titans Twitter wants Jeremiyah Love, what I've learned about the Titans is the Titans love to do what Twitter says. And Twitter has decided this weekend that they want Jeremiyah Love. Aaron says, Titans Twitter is why the team is in the shape that they're in. Kong says, I've been saying Jeremiyah Love, and people were saying, no, we can't possibly draft a running back. Now people want to change their tune? Well, I think it's a couple of things here. Jeremiyah Love is still a running back, and I still have my concerns about running back. You know, again, I've seen Titans Twitter, Justin Graver, and I like Justin Graver, but I've seen him go full-on defense about people who knock the idea of taking a running back in the top of the draft because it hasn't worked out for teams like the Raiders last year with Ashton Genty. And then there's this idea of, okay, well, if they drafted Armand Membu, would it be any different? If they drafted Tyler Warren, would it be any different? If they drafted any of those guys later, would it be any different? But I still can't get over the fact that Bijan Robinson is, as advertised when he was coming out of Texas, and Atlanta, it doesn't feel like, has won a meaningful game since Bijan Robinson's been on their team. The other thing is this. You can get elite backs consistently in the second round. Derrick Henry, second round. Breece Hall, second round. And there's a lot of free agent running backs that are out there. Kenneth Walker is out there. You people tell me Kenneth Walker's better than Sam Darnold. You guys tell me the only reason Sam Darnold's any good is because of Kenneth Walker. You sign him. So I've seen enough. Like when it comes to, if you wanted to argue no running back and four, I understand. But I also am aware of the fact that this draft does lack blue chip players, and Jeremiyah Love is truly a blue chip player. I think Jeremiyah Love is a top 10 draft in pretty much every draft. Even though there would be a team, I don't know if we can use the 8th pick on a running back, I still think there's a team that would do it. I think he's the caliber of prospect that Genty was, the caliber of prospect that McCaffrey was, the caliber of prospect that Leonard Fournette was, that Bijan Robinson was, that Saquon Barkley was. I still think he's that caliber of player. And I just don't know if there's many of those players in this draft. Like it feels to me when we're talking about elite. And I do not think that Fernando Mendoza is an elite quarterback prospect. I think there's a big gap between Trevor Lawrence and Fernando Mendoza as prospects. But I think he is a worthy number one quarterback pick, unlike your number one quarterback pick last year. And so those guys always get pushed up. It's like Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. Because if you look at that draft, it's like every guy after them was a true blue chip prospect. Ronnie Stanley, Laramie Tunsil, Jalen Ramsey, Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, that draft was just fucking loaded. And so for me, I'm like, there's just not that many guys in this year's draft that sit there. Jahmyr Gibbs was selected high. Jahmyr Gibbs was selected 12th. We're talking about running backs in the top 10 for whatever that's going to be worth. Joshua, I don't even know how I get this $5 that he put in there, but thank you, I guess. Says, are the Titans going to do anything on TV or streaming-wise on March 12th when they do the new logo unveiling? I assume that they will. If I had to be frank with you, yeah, I think that they would. And thank you for the $5, whatever that's worth. Let's get to some more of your reaction here as far as the Titans are concerned. Alex says, Love would be great. It would stink if the Cardinals do what the Chargers did and get Joe Alt before the Titans could. I don't know what Arizona's going to do. In all seriousness, I have no idea. Kevin says, what if Jeremiyah Love wants to wear number 27? LOL. I mean, haven't you kind of set that precedent? You unretired Warren Moon's number. Eddie George isn't even in the Hall of Fame. Warren Moon is. What if he wants to wear 34? Pay homage to Earl Campbell. Does Jeremiyah Love even know who Earl Campbell is? Does Jeremiyah Love even know who Eddie George is? That I don't know. Twitter. Jude says, why are the Titans so focused on bringing Chig back? I don't know. To me, I think there's going to be a handful of tight ends out there that you can go get. And I would just say throw them all into a bag, shake it up. And then when you shake it up, go ahead and decide right then and there, all right, we're going to get Chig Okonkwo because he's the one that fits our price range, whatever. But it could also be pulling somebody else out of the bag. I don't think Chig is special. He does have a relationship with the quarterback, so they wouldn't have to learn chemistry-wise. But other than that, again, this is the Earhart-Perkins offense. I just don't think Chig's a very good fit in it. Chig did not do much under Tim Kelly that year. I want a tight end who blocks more. I want that Frank Wycheck type tight end. You know, he's a good blocker. He's a good pass catcher. He's not going to, knock anybody's socks off with his run after the catch, but just a real solid tight end. And that is not Chig. TDG says Chig is coming back and is as good of odds than the Titans signing Hendrickson. I know the Titans aren't going to sign Trey Hendrickson. I'm just telling you they should. I knew the Titans weren't going to sign Sam Darnold. That doesn't mean that I don't think they should have, which is so crazy. One person says, James Foster says, Jeremiyah Love is not a great pass catcher. Limited route tree. He is not Marshall Faulk. He better be Marshall Faulk if I'm going to use the 4th overall draft pick on him. And he better not be Curtis Enos. Whew. Don't even get me started on Curtis Enos. I do want to hit on this story because it feels somewhat inevitable. So A.J. Brown is on the trade block, and everybody knows it. And there is something going on between A.J. Brown, the Eagles, and the Patriots. And I am torn as to whether or not I think this is going to happen. Personally, if I was running the Patriots, I think I'd rather have Stephon Diggs at $22 million and keep my draft choices than A.J. Brown at $29 million. But I get the sense that Mike Vrabel hates Stephon Diggs, doesn't trust Stephon Diggs, and wants A.J. Brown. I think it's pretty obvious A.J. Brown wants out of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia wants to get out of the A.J. Brown business, but they also want some sort of value in return. And so I think this is a deal where everybody has to do a little compromising. Mike Vrabel probably has to give Philadelphia a good, valuable draft choice in order to justify Howie Roseman trading A.J. Brown. So what would that pick be? It probably is pick 31, which I believe New England needs in order to build core young players around Drake May and Christian Gonzalez. I think Philadelphia has to compromise. And instead of just we get 31 for A.J. Brown, I think they either have to send their 2nd round pick at 54 back to the Patriots or both of their 3rd round picks. I think A.J. Brown has to compromise. And I think if this trade is going to go through, he's got to take a pay cut because New England is giving up 5 years of a cost-controlled 1st-round player to upgrade from Stephon Diggs to A.J. Brown. And Robert Kraft has made it very clear he's not going to spend big in the offseason like he did last year every single season. So A.J., in order to play for Vrabel and in order to get out of Philly, probably has to take a pay cut. And then I do think Robert Kraft has to compromise in all of this and say to himself, I know I want to spend the cap over a 3-year period, but dude, you just went to the Super Bowl. You went from worst to first. Don't you want to stay there? How miserable? This is the question I would ask Robert Kraft. How miserable was your life during the post-Tom Brady years compared to last year? Now, again, personally, if I were the Patriots, if I were Vrabel, I wouldn't make this trade because I think New England is further away from winning the Super Bowl than they probably would like to believe, and I don't think A.J. Brown bridges that gap. I also think that they need to build with young players to go with Drake May, Christian Gonzalez, and Will Campbell, I guess. But it feels like Mike Vrabel is absolutely hell-bent on getting rid of Stephon Diggs, and A.J. Brown is hell-bent on getting out of Philly. And I think Philly is hell-bent on looking like they got value for A.J. Brown. So, here's the trade. A.J. Brown goes to the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots give the Philadelphia Eagles the 31st pick in the draft. And Philadelphia sends both of their 3rd-round picks, 68 and 98, back to New England. So the Eagles get a 1st-round pick. The Patriots get 2 3rd-round picks and A.J. Brown. And I think this is kind of a big deal if you know all the players involved, A.J. Brown has to rework his contract. I think A.J. Brown cuts his salary from $29 million this upcoming season to the $22 million that Stephon Diggs is supposed to make, and that $7 million that A.J. Brown was supposed to get this year goes to next year, but is guaranteed. So as of right now, $4 million of A.J.'s contract in 2027 becomes guaranteed on one of the days of the league year. Now make that $11 million because we're adding the $7 million from this year onto that next year as far as guaranteed money is concerned. So 11 of his $21 million next year would be guaranteed instead of 4 of his $21 million. And once they all compromise, I think A.J. Brown will be a New England Patriot. But the one thing that I cannot get over is just how obvious it seems to me that Mike Vrabel does not want Stephon Diggs. A.J. Brown does not want to be in Philadelphia. And Philly wants to at least pretend like they won that trade. So that's what's going to happen. Philly's going to get a first-round pick. New England is going to get some draft value in return. So it's not like they just gave up the 31st pick in the draft. They'll get the 2 third-rounders. And A.J. takes a haircut to play for his buddy Vrabel. And that's why I think Vrabel was so complimentary last week at the combine of A.J., because Vrabel knows A.J. sees everything that is said about him, watches social media. A.J. watches this show. And I think Vrabel knows that. And so he wants to make sure that he's on A.J.'s good side, because at some point he's going to have to go to A.J. and say, hey, A.J., I need you to take a pay cut if you want to pay on this team. So there you go. Couple of other thoughts from the combine as well. Number 2, Ty Simpson is going in the first round. Not because he's that good. At least I don't think Ty Simpson is that good. I have serious questions about Simpson and the lack of time that he played at Alabama. And I believe that Simpson should have gone back to college for another season, if for no other reason. Master college football, get the reps. The NFL is not going anywhere. But these general managers are going to take a shot on Ty Simpson. Because when it comes to picking a quarterback, unless it's an obvious slam dunk, hey, would you like Josh Allen? These guys look at quarterbacks and they look at career risk. How much am I risking my career on this quarterback? And when it comes to the options that are out there, people like talking about Malik Willis. But if you pay Malik Willis $20 or $30 million as a general manager, you're risking your career on Malik. And I don't think owners are going to trade a second-round pick for Mac Jones. And every team loves the mystery box, because for every quarterback prospect, we can say, well, they didn't know Brock Purdy was going to be very good. They didn't know Tom Brady was going to be very good. They didn't know Patrick Mahomes was going to be that good. And that's what Ty Simpson is. He's the mystery box. Everybody loves the mystery box. Kyle Shanahan loved the mystery box when he sent 3 first-rounders for Trey Lance. Andy Reid, the mystery box, struck gold on Mahomes. And for somebody in the first round of this year's draft, Ty Simpson will represent the mystery box. And I'll be shocked if Ty Simpson makes it to pick 20 in the draft. Number 3, there's a lot of talk, or at least there was on ESPN this morning, about Kyler Murray. Can we just address the elephant in the room? Kyler Murray stinks. It took Arizona long enough to admit it, because they drafted him number 1 overall, and then they gave him the contract. But Kyler Murray, over 7 years, never truly played winning football. The idea that everyone's phone is buzzing at the combine about what's going to happen to Kyler is absurd, because Kyler doesn't move the needle in any fashion in the NFL. No one is going to trade for Kyler because he's got $19.5 million coming to him guaranteed in 2027 if he's on your team in 2026. And Kyler has no reason to work with another team to facilitate a trade when he knows that Arizona is going to release him instead of guaranteeing that 19.5 for 2027. Now, Kyler will start next year at quarterback for a team in the NFL because Kyler Murray is one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet. And he'll become a free agent, and there will be teams that want Kyler Murray, similar to the teams that wanted Derek Carr a couple of years ago. But Kyler Murray has never once demonstrated, through 7 years and almost $170 million in cash, tax-free, by the way, in Arizona, that he is capable of winning a Super Bowl or leading an organization. He just hasn't shown anything. He hasn't shown resiliency. He hasn't shown true playmaking ability. He hasn't shown consistency. He hasn't shown any of that. People will talk Kyler because people want to know where the quarterbacks are going to land. And there's a chance he could go to a big market team like the Jets, or the chance he could go to an iconic franchise like the Steelers. But Kyler Murray sucks. Kyler Murray is a better version of Justin Fields and a little bit shorter. He sucks. And for years, people have said, no, Kyler's good, trust us. And yet, again, after $170 million, Kyler Murray has proven he's what? One of the best 30 quarterbacks on the planet? And he's certainly not one of the hardest working, because I don't think they had to put a video game clause in Peyton Manning or Tom Brady's contract. So again, there will be a lot of talk about what's going to happen with Kyler Murray. I just do not think, as far as the NFL is concerned, that Kyler Murray moves the needle whatsoever. And finally, the Texans. Today they traded Titus Howard to the Browns, their soon-to-be 30-year-old right tackle, to Cleveland, and then they traded for Detroit running back David Montgomery. Now, I understand that they probably wanted to upgrade at running back from Woody Marks and the bunch of nobodies they had out there. But who's going to play on the offensive line for the Texans? And so they'll have Ed Ingram, who was a solid guard for them last year. He'll stay there. And I think they believe they drafted their left tackle of the future in the second round to replace Laramie Tunsil. And they've got a nice cupboard of draft picks in Houston. But Blake Fisher, who bombed as a rookie, I guess is going to be their right tackle next year. The Texans' offensive line is a mess. And I absolutely think that it has hurt C.J. Stroud's development over the last 2 years. And when it comes to fixing the Texans' problems, I just don't think David Montgomery moves the needle at all. He's an okay running back. The big issue is, why did C.J. Stroud look like a franchise quarterback in year one? Why did C.J. Stroud of the offense regress in year two? Why did it become just an abomination in year three? And is there any way of salvaging it in year four? And they've already blamed the play caller, and that didn't work. And now they've completely changed the offensive line, and that hasn't worked. They've added receivers, and they've drafted skill position players, and they've traded for running backs. And so far, that hasn't worked. I think what happened was the Texans got really lucky that first year. They played a terrible schedule. The AFC South was a joke. C.J. Stroud had a lot of talent. The league did not have tape on him. Bobby Slowick had a plan. Their veteran players all played up to their ability, whether it was George Fant at right tackle or Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. Titus Howard was a good guard that year. They hit on Dalton Schultz. They hit on Robert Woods. Their draft picks, Tank Dell, Nico Collins produced. But to expect all of that to happen again, I got to think the Texans are a lost cause. And David Montgomery is not the difference maker one way or another as far as Houston is concerned. Somebody said Will this morning on the radio. I'm guessing that's Will Bowling. I don't know why you would listen to that show, by the way, when Robbie and Joe are on at the same time. Robbie and Joe are so much better. Said, Will this morning on the radio, Bad talked about the subject of signing Trey Hendrickson. I don't agree. I mean, again, other than the fact that he had core muscle surgery, which is a 6-week injury, and he's probably completely healthy. Other than that, what would the fear of signing Trey Hendrickson be? Well, he's now 31. He's too old. Max Crosby's 28 and has been, I think, far more injured than Hendrickson. You guys don't like guys that get 17 and a half sacks a year? I like guys who get 17 and a half sacks a year. One guy says, all of a sudden, Titan podcasters like two-tone talk. I don't even know what that is. I'm sure he's great, though. All of a sudden, Titans podcasters are now saying it's okay if Cam can become like Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold. That's a cop-out to me, an excuse. I expect elite for a number one pick. Yeah, I mean, anybody that says that it's okay that Cam becomes Sam Darnold doesn't know the fact that the way economics work in the NFL, if he is Sam Darnold, he will not get his fifth-year option picked up, and they will move on before he becomes Sam Darnold, which is also amazing because, I mean, you could have just signed Sam Darnold, but I don't want to get into that one way or another. Jude says, you'll know after this year if Cam isn't the long-term answer. He'll either be top 10 or he'll be in the Will Levis position. See, I think Cam's going to be more like Kyler. And this goes back to kind of my anger talking about Kyler Murray. Kyler did just enough for Arizona, who wanted to believe that we drafted our franchise quarterback, to treat him like their franchise quarterback, till finally, after $170 million, they said, nah, we're kind of tired of winning 5 games a year. And that's what I think Cam's going to be. I think Cam's going to do just enough to make the Titans give him a contract, to allow Twitter, who calls the shots for the Titans football department, to say, we got to give Cam a contract. And then they're going to give him a contract. And then after they give him the contract, they won't win any games. And after they piss away $170 million, then they'll finally move on. That's just what I'm saying. That's just me. Okay, that's it for us, Stillman & Company. Like and subscribe. I believe, unless there is some breaking news between now and then, we will have 2 shows on Friday. We'll have our free agent show. I might do that one in the morning, our free agent preview show, because free agency does open Monday. Fuck yeah. And we'll have to have our Preds trade deadline reaction show after the trade deadline is over, which now, after yesterday, I've learned I just do shows whenever we need to do them. But we'll, of course, be live tomorrow at 2 o'clock, where we may have our Jared Stillman mock draft 1.0. That's it for us. We're out of here. Stillman & Company. Like and subscribe. Thank you to Hiller on the 440 Sports Network.